Welcome to Triple R, Rock Riddle's reality. I am Rock Riddle. Today, I'd like to share my personal insights into one of the greatest minds in the entertainment industry and to one of the most remarkable gentlemen I've ever met. Allow me to give you a little background. I was living in Hayward, California. I had given notice on my townhome that I was leaving. Even though I would continue wrestling out of the San Francisco area, the San Francisco territory for Mr. Roy Shire, I was leaving this East Bay, Hayward, California townhouse, traveling down to Los Angeles because I had just begun wrestling in the Los Angeles-based National Wrestling Alliance. I was living in the Hollywood Hills. My first match in Los Angeles took place at the world-famous Olympic Auditorium. I was there. It was there. I remember that I talked to the booker, the promoter, Leo Garibaldi, and I said, "Leo, I've ended up in the entertainment capital of the world. I think I'll be a movie and television star." Well, I'll tell you that story. That's a story for a different video. Or maybe it's already up. I mean, depending on when you're watching this. So take a look. Understanding that networking is the key to success in just about every industry. I attended movie premieres, awards dinners, entertainment industry networking events at private estates. All were very professional, classy events. And there I would meet the so-called movers and shakers in the film and television industry. In my first week in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, I met an actress/comedian. She stood about 5 feet tall and weighed probably just over 300 pounds. Great personality. Her name was Tiny Brooks. And Tiny told me about this new television show that was auditioning talent. She had already auditioned and she was awaiting word as to whether or not she'd made the cut. She told me that there was a producer named Chuck Barris, and that Chuck Barris had a new concept for a game show that would be called The Gong Show. She told me as much as she could about the show, as much as she knew at least, and she said I should audition. She said I'd be great for the show. So I knew that they were incorporating amateur so-called contestants along with professional paid actors and entertainers. So I had already applied. Even that first week, I had already applied for my union card. This was being done after American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. So I had my card before I got hired. I knew I would be doing this as paid talent. So as I was driving back and forth to the matches in San Bernardino, that's California, I came up with this idea. I had seen the movie A Clockwork Orange, and if you ever saw that movie, there's a scene in there where these guys were singing the song, "Singing in the Rain," and as they were singing it, it was raining in the movie, they were kicking this guy who was down. You'll have to see the movie. So that's where the idea started. And I thought, what if I sing, break boards, beat up a dummy? I would play it really straight, I thought. That would be really funny. At least it would be very funny to me. So I took it a few steps further. What if I were dressed in one of my outrageous professional wrestling outfits as I'm beating up the dummy? And what if I had a gorgeous blonde lady wearing a sexy magician's assistant outfit? She would hold the board. She would hand me the dummy. So by the time I had driven back to Hollywood that night, back to my Hollywood Hills home, the idea and the act were solid up here. I called Chuck Barris Productions the next morning to set a time for an audition. They were taping the audition. I got the audition. The audition went well. all of the people, when I did this audition, the camera operators, the staff, the crew, the casting people, they were laughing. So I must have made some correct decisions in thinking that I thought it would be really funny, and apparently they did also. They were laughing, and when I finished, everybody applauded. And I took that as a good sign. I had just returned home from the audition when the phone rang. In fact, I'm walking in the door and the phone starts to ring. It was the production company. It was Chuck Barris Productions. Rock, you were fantastic. Chuck watched the tape. He loved it. He wants you for the show. So, Chuck Barris was impressed. I was then invited to the studio to meet him in person. I went, obviously. We talked for about 20 minutes. In fact, every time I went in to audition for anything he was doing or to film something, Chuck would stop what he was doing and we would talk. At that time, he was worth $17 million. Let me tell you about inflation. In today's dollars, that's a little over 100 million. So he was worth over $100 million in today's money. And yet he always, no matter what he was doing, it's like he always made time to talk with me. And we usually talked for about 15 or 20 minutes or so. He would ask me how I was doing, how my career was going. And he seemed genuinely interested. Chuck Barris gave me an amazing compliment. He said, Rock, you are the first person I've met who totally understands the concept of the Gong Show. Seemed fairly obvious to me, but other people they didn't grasp it. So I did the breaking boards, beating up the dummy singing act for his daytime and his primetime evening Gong shows. And I remember him asking me, he says, so, Rock, what else do you have? My longtime friend, Rowdy Roddy Piper, had given me a gigantic sombrero. That sombrero has an amazing history, which I'll share in an upcoming video. And again, depending on when you're watching this, it may already be up. Take a look. So I purchased a straitjacket, I believe, from a medical supply company. They didn't even look strangely at me when I came in with my amazing blonde hair and said, I'm here to buy a straitjacket. I bought a curtain rod and a curtain, and I had a new assistant, a wonderful lady, gorgeous blonde lady in a magician's assistant outfit yet once again. I had leg restraints also. So here's the act. El Magnifico, the great escape artist from Mexico. In fact, I just found this online. I can only show you a little bit, but I'm going to put a tiny bit of that up. I'll insert it right here.
El Magnifico, the Magnificent. Toenail. There we go, gang. All right. Folks, next up. Are you ready? All right. Hey, you know, this girl is of Nikki Jones. Do it.
whatever. I've got a link below that will take you to the complete show where I found it. As you'll see, I was unable to get out of the straitjacket. That's what makes it funny. I fell through the curtain and down the stairs, still restrained. When we went to commercial, I remember Chuck coming over to me. He bent down in a quiet voice. He said, "Rock, I'll leave you here for the rest of the show, but just don't do anything. Just lie there. Don't bring attention to yourself." And I looked up at him with a sort of a questioning look. I said, "Of course." I was sure that he totally trusted me. I felt like he totally trusted me, but he still needed to say that anyway. And that was cool, and I understand. Who knows? Maybe I would have thought when the camera pulled back that maybe I should struggle, and that would have taken away from the joke. So I appreciate what he said. So every time the cameras pulled away from the stage, there was Rock lying on the studio floor, still in the straitjacket. After the commercial breaks, there was Rock still lying on the studio floor in the straitjacket. Later on in that show, that same show, there's a young lady who's singing very badly. She's amateur talent, and someone told her she sings well, but she was really bad. So the celebrity judges, as you will see when you watch the entire show, they came to me lying there on the studio floor. They, the three of them, removed my straitjacket, and then they put it on this young singer. This is one of my favorite episodes. In all, I did 7 TV shows for Chuck Barris. I did 1 feature film. I was in the movie for a second or two, but I was paid, and every single time that movie plays anywhere in the world, on any platform, I get another check. Residuals are good. In fact, I'm still getting residuals for the Sylvester Stallone movie Paradise Alley, and that's been a few decades ago. In fact, I have a video up about that. Look for the one about Sly Stallone. I had received, during this time that I was doing these shows, I received a phone call from one of Chuck's assistants. And the fellow said, "Rock, I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Chuck Barris, and he'd like for you to do the dating game." Well, I knew I would be paid as professional talent. And in today's dollars, that's close to $2,000 for the day, maybe more, plus prizes. And my response was, "Thank you. No, thank you." The assistant said, "Rock, I don't understand. You've done all these outrageous acts on the Gong show, that the least of which would have been horribly embarrassing for an ordinary person, but you don't want to do the dating game?" I think he was implying that I was embarrassed to do it. I said, "No, that's correct. I'm not interested. Tell Chuck I said thank you for the offer, but I'm going to pass." There was silence for a couple of moments, and then the associate spoke. "Rock," he said, "Chuck really wants you to do the show." There was another pause. I imagined the look on Chuck Barris's face if he were told, "Rock turned you down." I couldn't say no to Chuck Barris, so I asked the guy on the phone, I said, "Can I do it in character?" His response was, "Rock, you can do anything you want." This time the pause was a little shorter, and I said, "Tell Chuck I said thank you, and I'll see him on the set." And yes, I did the dating game, and yes, I won, and that was a real win. That was not, it was a legitimate contest. And no, I did not go on the date. I did it as professional talent. And I remember the lady with whom I won the date. She was gorgeous. Her name, according to announcer Jim Lang, was Jackie Built Like a Fort Knox. Stuck in my brain. If anyone who's watching finds that dating game online anywhere, please put a link in the comments below. If you ever see that episode, you'll notice me saying something to the announcer on my way after winning. If you listen really carefully, you can hear it. Jim Lang, very tall, surprisingly tall. So as I walked up to him, I softly said, "Slouch down, you make me look bad." Classic fun. Classic fun. He had to react, but he was not able to react in such a way as to give away what I had just said. Professional that he is. Okay, back to the Gong Show for a moment. The Gong Show was amazing. It was a tremendous hit. Some fabulous big-name stars made appearances on the show. Alice Cooper was on the show. Pee Wee Herman, tons more. I remember Chuck Barris talking to me about becoming a running gag on the show. And when he did that, I said, well, let me run out of ideas first, because I knew I could give him some great acts. His offer for me to become a running gag on the show, like the Unknown Comic or Gene the Dancing Machine, recurring character, if you will, that was greatly flattering. So you may ask, why did I end up not a running gag on the show? The answer is I was young and somewhat naive, and I gave priority to attempting to save a relationship. I know, stupid, pretty stupid. I learned, though, and never made that mistake again. After the Gong Show ended, I believe Chuck Barris moved, at least for a period of time, to the south of France. I ran into Milton DeLug at a Hollywood event. That was Chuck's friend and band leader. And I passed greetings to Chuck through Milton. Chuck Barris died on March 21st, 2017. He was a wonderful, wonderful man. He is greatly missed. And he will live in the hearts of all who knew him. All who knew him, as far as I know, everyone loved Chuck Barris. The people who are aware that we knew each other, they still ask me every once in a while, hey, was Chuck Barris really a CIA hitman? Maybe they read Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. Maybe they saw the movie. Maybe they believed it. So when people ask, I simply shrug, but inside I smile. I look up toward the sky and I say, Chuck, you are so good. After you've left this earth, you're still fooling them. You're still playing with the people. What an amazing guy he was. So, if you enjoy these videos, please subscribe, like, share, click the notification bell. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful life. Remember, every day above ground is a good day. And also, please remember that you are appreciated. See you soon. Thank you.